Hello, I'm Helen Cooper and I'm thinking today about first lines in novels, something that all writers have grappled with and obsessed about at some point. I'm going to start by reading some first lines from novels that I think work really well. I won't say what novels they're from to start with in case you want to guess and try and identify them from the first line. And then I'll go through and reveal what books they're from and say a little bit about why I think they really work for those books. Number 1. It was a bright cold day in April and the clocks were striking 13. Number 2. It was a queer sultry summer, the summer they electrocuted the Rosenbergs, and I didn't know what I was doing in New York. Number 3. All children, except one, grow up. 4. All happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Number 5. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like and how my parents were occupied and all that before they had me and all that David Copperfield kind of crap. But I don't feel like going into it if you want to know the truth. Number 6. Someone must have slandered Joseph K. For one morning, without having done anything truly wrong, he was arrested. And finally, where's Papa going with that axe? Said Fern to her mother as they were setting the breakfast table. So did you recognise any of them? Going back through then, that first one, very iconic line, it was a bright cold day in April and the clocks were striking 13. It is of course from George Orwell's 1984, and why I think it works really well is it starts with that sensory detail. It was a bright cold day in April. I love the rhythm of that as well. So it really enables us to picture ourselves there. But then we get the surprise of and the clocks were striking 13. Which tells us that we're entering a very slightly different world from the one that we're used to. And the second one, it was a queer sultry summer, the summer they electrocuted the Rosenbergs and I didn't know what I was doing in New York. That's from The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and I think it does a similar thing in terms of immersing us in sensory detail to start with. It does a great job of quite neatly placing it in a certain time and social context with electrocution of the Rosenbergs, but then we get that very personal sense of a character in a situation, maybe in a bit of a crisis with I didn't know what I was doing in New York. And of course it is character and it's that human element of the story that is really going to pull us in, so I think it's important to get to that as soon as possible, for me anyway, as a reader. Then we've got this very short, simple one, all children except one grow up, which you probably know is Peter Pan. It is short, it's simple, which I think can be really nice for a first line, but again it shows us that something slightly unusual is going to be happening in the story and that we're going to be focusing on a child or a person, a character who is very unique. Similarly with the next one, all happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. So that's from Anna Karenina, in case you didn't get it, by Leo Tolstoy. And I think it really sets the tone nicely of the novel. It tells us it's going to be about families, it's going to be about unhappiness, but it's also going to be about a unique set of circumstances, because again we go from the broad to the specific quite quickly. All happy families are alike. But each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way, inviting us to learn something about the very uniquely unhappy families, perhaps complex families that we're going to learn about in the novel. The next one's quite a long one, I won't read it all again. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like. So it's from Catcher in the Rye, of course. And this is all about the voice, and the whole novel really is all about the voice of the main teenage narrator. So that first line, although it's very long, it's very rambly, it immediately sets up that conversational tone, and we get a clear sense of the character and his attitude, which again is perfect as an opening for that specific novel. Then number 6, someone must have slandered Joseph K. for one morning without having done anything truly wrong. He was arrested. So that's from Kafka's The Trial. And what I love about that one is we're just straight into a scene, a scenario, a moment of crisis in that person's life. He's being arrested. I love the little subtle hint of without having done anything truly wrong, so that's really quite intriguing for the reader. And I definitely want to know more about what's going on here, why he's been arrested, has he done anything wrong, can we trust him, has somebody slandered him, what is going to happen, how is he going to get out of it if he is being wrongly arrested. So many questions and story beginnings that are opening up just in one short sentence there. And finally, the only one here that starts with dialogue is, "Where's Papa going with that axe?" said Fern to her mother as they were setting the breakfast table. And I think starting with dialogue can be great because it's very active. Again, we're hearing our character's voice straight away, and we're immersing ourselves in a scene, and in a scene that involves more than one character as well, so it's very interactive. And not just dialogue, but this is actually a question as well. Where's Papa going with that axe? So we immediately get a visual of the dad whizzing past with an axe, and we're immediately, of course, wondering, where is he going with that axe? What on earth is he doing? And we also get this sense of a domestic setting. Fern and her mother are setting the table, so again we're immediately immersed in the visuals of the story. So I think what I've learned from a lot of these first lines and from reading them and writing them is that it depends what you want the first line to do for you. Is it about setting the tone for the novel? Is it about quickly establishing the voice of the character if it's a very voice-driven narrative? Is it about that real attention-grabbing first line? Is it about raising a question, a mystery straight away? And I think it's great to have that really unusual attention-grabbing first line. In fact, it's really important, but it's got to be relevant to the story as well, is what I've learned. There's no point doing it for the sake of it, just playing to the gallery for the sake of it, and it feels a bit gimmicky then. So you've got to think about an attention-grabbing first line that is also, I think, doing something else for your story. So setting the tone, the mood, telling the reader what to expect from the rest of the novel. And you want them to feel like they're in a safe pair of hands as well. So you want confidence in the first line, a sense that this writer knows what they're doing and they're going to kind of scoop you up and take you on a really interesting journey. And of course, it's not all on the first line. You've got the whole first paragraph and the first page in which to pull in the reader. But the first line is the gateway to that, and so I do think it's really, really important and worth coming back to and editing just to get it right.